Hello, and welcome to Global Policy Forum's video interview series. In July, we conducted an interview with Jerry Martone, Director of Humanitarian Affairs for the International Rescue Committee, about the integration of military and civilian activities in conflict zones. This interview generated a great deal of interest in this subject, so we decided to discuss the same issue with another prominent NGO voice here in New York, Catherine Dumait-Harper. Working with the international humanitarian organization Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, since 1993, Catherine served as the organization's delegate to the United Nations until 2005. During this period, she coordinated MSF's advocacy efforts related to the conflicts in East Timor, Kosovo, Afghanistan, West Africa, and elsewhere. In this interview, Catherine discusses the need to keep military operations distinct from humanitarian activities because this blurring of lines has led to confusion, tension, and increased vulnerability for aid workers in the field. She also argues that by overlapping security and humanitarian roles, many international organizations, both military and civilian, have violated international humanitarian law.
Our doctors in the field, and we were in the bushes somewhere in Afghanistan. When our doctors show up, someone asked at the hospital, the patient asked, "Are you a UK soldiers? Are you a US soldiers?" And despite the fact we were going with our own logo and without arms, and the cars are the logo, people were very confused, and we have been, when I talk we, MSF has been in Afghanistan more than 25 years. And so suddenly there was a confusion, who was doing what. Then another problem was when the army decided to drop some aid packages. And we knew that the people will try to come, and some soldier will come to pick up the packages, and they will fire in the air, and they will take some of them, the soldiers will, and the next day they were selling them in the market. So MSF, talked about it. We made some statement saying, to do any humanitarian work, you have to control your distribution. You have to control your work. The blurring lines of the military occupation or military interventions, I would say, with their political goals that they want to kind of hide for various reasons, but under humanitarian spaces. So it's not only to win the trust of the people in the field, and let's say in Afghanistan, to the trust of the Afghan people, but it's also obviously for domestic reasons, domestic politics. I mean, you see that some countries which are members of the coalition in Afghanistan now, the public is asking for withdrawing the troops because the casualty and so on. And the same for our government, I believe, American government here in the US. So you have this politics and I will call it PR, relation, public relation of hearts and minds, how you, so they establish some project. I mean, the military will establish some project like building and even working in some hospital in some cases. And so there is a real confusion in the field, who is doing what. That's implied, and we humanitarian organization, are working with the Western powers in Afghanistan or somewhere else for their own, with military goals and political ones, this is completely unacceptable. Does that put our people in danger? Yes, and especially the civilians as well, the population that we're trying to serve. If they think that we are part of this intervention, they're going to attack us. I mean, when I say us, any humanitarian actors working in the region, if the belligerent, are thinking that we are part of the intervention, they're going to target us, obviously. And unfortunately, what happened very recently could be one of the examples. In my experience, the days I was working for Médecins Sans Frontières, and I could see with other organizations how you could be very independent or how you could depend from governments, and that's a big problem, because the governments wants to also not only to give you money, but to kind of they expect you to follow their politics as well, their political goals. And I was surprised to see other organizations which didn't question at all their actions in the field or nor their fundings. The most recent hybrid deployment, missions, both in Iraq and in Afghanistan, have not been very much in favor of the Geneva Convention and therefore the International Humanitarian Law to implement them. I mean, because we go back to the just war, and therefore we kind of forget about these IHL, as I will say, for the International Humanitarian Law. And it was specifically true during the Bush administration, when, in terms of Guantanamo and about the prisoners of wars and et cetera, et cetera. So for us, humanitarian, we're working under these international humanitarian laws, and to see that the various military intervention are not ignoring actually these international laws is quite upsetting, to say the least. And we question very much, these new operations, and even I believe that obviously after September 11, everything changed around the world, and now we were at war. I mean, the U.S. was at war and is at war, so they decide to do their just war and the way they wanted to, and ignoring the international law. So that there are consequences in the field. How can you say to any belligerent forces, why do you do this to your population or to humanitarians worker or to us military, if we don't recognize those laws and don't apply them in the field? First of all, we should go back to the rules of law, and especially of the Geneva Conventions and the International Humanitarian Law. That's the basic for humanitarian actors, at least. And then the military should understand that. We are, as one of my colleagues said in the past, we are just doctors. We know we are not with guns and with arms, and we have just there to help the people and to bring them care, and especially to the most vulnerable population. So those ones usually are the most difficult to reach. And therefore, if you want to have their trust, you can just bring them aid and try the best you can to help them.
In light of the issues discussed in this interview, Catherine argues that the best way forward is to make a clear separation between militaries, which conduct wars, and civilian NGOs which deliver humanitarian and development assistance to vulnerable populations. Based on her many experiences in the field, she suggests that making war and building lasting peace are fundamentally incompatible tasks. They should be conducted by distinct groups that do not share responsibilities. This is Sarah Kleinman reporting for Global Policy Forum. For more information and analysis, please visit our website at www.globalpolicy.org.